Hey guys, I'm Tanner. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you guys so much for coming to our workshop on bringing meetings into treatment facilities and institutions. Thank you to everyone for being here, and welcome to all our participants and panelists. This workshop is being held on behalf of the Austin bid for ICYPAA. ICYPAA is the International Conference for Young People in Alcoholics Anonymous and was founded for the purpose of providing a setting for an annual celebration of sobriety among young people in AA. This year's conference is being held in New Orleans, and the purpose of this bid committee is to bring the conference to Austin, Texas in the future. As a committee, we are dedicated to several service projects, and as the bid service liaison, I have had the privilege of organizing various aspects of our projects and furthering our bid's primary purpose of carrying the message to the still sick and suffering alcoholic. The following is a passage from the foreword to the fourth edition of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. While our literature has preserved the integrity of the AA message, sweeping changes in society as a whole are reflected in new customs and practices within the fellowship. Taking advantage of technological advances, for example, AA members with computers can participate in meetings online, sharing with fellow alcoholics across the country or around the world. In any meeting, anywhere, AAs share experience, strength, and hope with each other in order to stay sober and help other alcoholics. Modem to modem or face to face, AAs speak the language of the heart in all its power and simplicity. And now back to me. Now more than ever, these technological advances are vital to sharing our experience, strength, and hope with the still suffering alcoholic. During this unprecedented pandemic, each day is another day when alcoholics of all ages are reaching out for help with a desire to stop drinking. And with so many limitations on how we can participate in the fellowship, it is incredibly important that we have safe and ethical ways to carry the life-saving message of Alcoholics Anonymous into institutions. And the purpose of this workshop is to discuss best practices in doing so. Our first two panelists are professionals in the treatment field and will speak for 10 minutes each on HIPAA compliance, privacy concerns, and the professional side of bringing Zoom meetings into institutions and programs, followed by two members of AA and the Austin bid for ICYPAA, who will discuss their experience carrying the message via Zoom during this new frontier. First, I would like to introduce Elizabeth Rolfe, the clinical director of a large treatment center in Central Texas.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Okay, awesome. So hi, my name is Elizabeth Rolfe. Thank you for having me. Anna, thank you for inviting me to do this. I'm gonna set my timer, not that I may reach 10 minutes, but just in case. This is a very interesting and unprecedented time for treatment and for AA as well in service opportunities. How do we continue to have service opportunities? How do we carry our message? How do we carry the message? And then for treatment centers, how do we continue to allow individuals with a message, right, with a very strong message, to bring those into our institutions with the current risk that's happening. And so I'm getting the sense, I think a lot of everybody's from different states, or there's probably people from different states. This is all, I am in Texas, and so I can speak to what we're doing at my facility, what I know some other facilities are doing. And generally, I think most people, if you've taken in an H&I to a treatment center, you have gone in, you've signed a confidentiality agreement, you've signed a waiver acknowledging, I'm not going to take any pictures, I'm going to protect the privacy and rights of these individuals, and do my best to carry the message. And anything outside of that as a member of AA is, I'm not, we're not there to, you're not there to get people's pictures and take them out in the world and say, guess who I saw in treatment. The Zoom platform or the electronic platform there's a few things. I think some people, in some moments, it feels like it's limited the ability to do H&Is. I believe there's actually now an increased accessibility to facilities because there's less time to drive somewhere, right? There's the ability to be there in an electronic way, and maybe the clients can't leave the facility, right? Maybe a van broke down or there's something. I think in the future, there are going to be many applications for the continued use of telecommunication in bringing H&Is to facilities. What facilities, or what we have to do as a facility, is ensure that we came up with an electronic waiver that meets the state and HIPAA requirements, that our H&I volunteers are signing those waivers, that our clients are signing those waivers. Because we may have clients who don't consent to being on an electronic platform and won't be part of that H&I group. And that's their right. And so they have the ability to sign or not sign and not participate. Electronically, though, provide one of our compliance ladies was like, well, how? I mean, that seems to pose a problem getting a confidentiality release from an incoming H&I. And it's like, well, send it to them via email, right? Have them send it back via email. So the way that we have the ability we have right now to communicate with technology is so user friendly that getting those releases in place is actually easier than we thought. Now for Texas currently, you have to be licensed generally to provide telehealth services or to provide electronic means of communication. Texas currently has waived some of those high rigid standards because of the current epidemic, right? The current pandemic that we're in. And so there's the ability right now, a lot of treatment centers in this time have to work on getting up to compliance, right? In the event, well, because the state laws and the licensure guidelines and requirements will eventually come back into place, and we have to be able to meet those. So some facilities, when they can go back to all in person, will be doing that. Additional facilities like the facility I'm at, we're looking at what are all the loopholes that we have to jump through for the state, through our additional credentialing board, through our individual licensing boards, to continue to provide these opportunities for individuals in the community and for our clients. And so that is a big consideration. You may be taking a meeting into somewhere electronically, and this pandemic changes, or the state says, okay, no more electronic means, and that floodgate may get shut down. And so the facilities each individually have to determine, are we going to continue this? Are we going to seek licensure for this additionally? Or when this is over, are we done with it? For our clients, it's been very interesting. I think most of us can remember early recovery. It's very difficult to pay attention. It's difficult to pay attention in meetings sometimes, right? But this electronic platform is very difficult. And so having external H&Is come in, we have to have, as a treatment center, we have to have a process where we know the individuals. Is the individual engaging? Are they prepared? Because if we have an H&I that comes in and it's somebody who they're not prepared, they can't engage the group, it falls flat. And I think that's a bigger charge for us as AAs. In our job is not to entertain people, right, when carrying the message. But this platform, it is so important to figure out, how do I engage the individuals in a different way? And not necessarily entertain these individuals, but how do I engage them in early recovery when their minds are going 50,000 miles per hour, when I can't look at somebody. I can scan my little computer screen right now, but Jan doesn't know if I'm looking at her or Dale or Penny. Nobody knows. There's no eye contact. There's no connection. There's no feeling. I'm talking to some nodding heads and some blank faces and a bunch of quiet, right? There's nothing. There's no feedback from you guys. And so as bringing an H&I in, it's difficult to gauge what's going on with the group. And as a group, it's difficult to gauge, like, what is this person on the screen doing, right? What's this H&I? What are they trying to get at? And so being very mindful, I think of, I think that's a charge for us in carrying the messages. How do I engage or invite or I don't know, how do I not entertain, because we're not here to juggle, right? But how am I engaging? How am I bringing a message with depth and weight that can grab somebody's attention in early recovery? Because attention is so short. And maybe I'm the only one on this platform, but probably not, that I have been in the program for a while. I have difficulty on Zoom meetings paying attention myself. I'm everywhere. And so I can only imagine in early recovery, if this pandemic were going on in early recovery, I don't know how I would have navigated this. And So I think it's really cool that we have individuals in treatment and that we have the ability right now to take these, to continue to carry our message. And I do think for a lot of us, and in the areas you're at, if you're taking meetings to facilities, really asking them like, hey, do you guys plan on continuing to do this? Or are we going to start coming in person? Or, because there are, I think, endless possibilities for accessibility in this process. And I think it's very exciting. I think it's a little nerve-wracking, and some facilities really have to get on the ball with how do we get into compliance if we want to continue providing this. I had some sober living. I oversee some sober living programs as well, and they called and they go, hey, the girls haven't been doing their H&I, so they're not, there's not a lot of H&I opportunities. There's more H&I opportunities right now than usual, because treatment facilities, they need meetings. People need meetings. They need people to carry the message in. And if you call and say, hey, do you have an open night where you guys need a meeting, or that, we have to ask and kind of, beat the tree to see, does anybody need a meeting? We now have this extra platform, which is really cool. It's a new tool for us. It's a new kind of uncharted waters. So I think I'm just about out of time. I hope that wasn't too confusing. But I think the biggest thing for my facility is moving forward in this grace period from the state of Texas with the reduction of okay, get the electronic stuff started, a HIPAA compliant platform. There's some things that we're doing, but how do we get to that next level to continue providing these opportunities for our clients and for individuals in the community? So, and that is all I have. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's really great to have you here. Thank you so much for speaking. Now we are going to welcome Hannah Milne, who is an executive director of an alternative peer group here in Austin.
I'm really happy to be here. I'm also going to set a timer, but like said before, I think 10 minutes might be harder to handle. So just to kind of give you guys a little background, alternative peer groups work with adolescents. So the one I work at does ages 13 to 18. And so we work with them and their parents and siblings. And so we provide recovery support services as well as social activities for adolescents. And so, for us, our age group is obsessed with technology. So the transition to online, as much as we were worried about it, I think it wasn't quite as difficult as, I've heard from other places, and we've been really blessed with that. I will say one of the things that is difficult, though, and I love that Elizabeth talked about this, is really trying to keep people's attention, because that, you need someone that's kind of charismatic and who can hold their own to really kind of get the message across. And, it's not like they're in person, so they might feel bad if they're on their phone compared to being on Zoom, and you can just put your phone right under the camera and it kind of looks like you're paying attention. And so I think I love that we've been super blessed to have H&Is be a part of our APG, because it's been really helpful to, have new people bring the message. Especially, I think working in the addiction field, your clients end up hearing your own story of some kind, or bits and pieces of your perception of things quite often. And so I think it's always a really nice thing to get to hear that message said through a different lens. Because, you never know who the next person is going to be able to relate to most. And that's something that I think are really, we're very blessed to get to work with the ICYPAA committee. And, I think the biggest privacy concern that we have, we got a couple, we work with minors, right? And the other piece of that looks like, it's happened a couple times where I've been on Instagram and seen that someone in the group has posted a photo of the Zoom call, right? And because it's a very different kind of communication tool, and they're trying to, you know, show what their life looks like. And Zoom is a big part of that right now, right? And so it's working with them around how do you, like, really going over with them new kind of confidentiality rules, because this is new territory for us too. And we're all trying to kind of navigate this. And, you know, with H&Is and with us, kind of the way we go about that is, so we introduced the idea to the group, and we talked with the kids about, you know, is this something y'all feel comfortable with? And when they said yes, then we brought it to the parents, right? And that's an added extra step for us, just because most of our participants are under 18. And, you know, and so we talked with parents about it, and it was figuring out, you know, what were they going to need to feel comfortable with this, and how could we, you know, have this be a part of the program, and maybe be an optional part of the program, right? So maybe if a parent didn't feel comfortable with it, then their kid just didn't participate that day. And that was something that felt more natural for us. All of our adolescents and our programs sign confidentiality waivers, and so do their parents as part of when they sign up. And all of our meetings, right, we kind of take the same approach with the H&I with the kids as we do when we take them, or, you know, we take them to AA meetings in the community, right? It's, you know, what you hear here stays here, and needs to be that way, and who you see here also needs to stay here. And so we emphasize that a lot to the kids, because, you know, that's a message that's super important for them to hear. And, you know, I think being involved in the ICYPAA committee or not even the committee, but being involved in the ICYPAA world, right, in Austin, that's something that I know people in AA take very seriously as well. And so for us, it's a little bit less intensive with waivers, because our program is not HIPAA compliant. But, you know, we very much respect confidentiality, and the privacy of the kids that we work with is our top priority, given that, you know, you never know. You never know. And for some of these kids, they're not there necessarily by their own choice as well. And so that's something that's extra important to take into account, is that, you know, they don't want to be recognized by anybody for being a part of it, and that's perfectly fine. And so I think for us, it's just a big thing is, you know, being very open and transparent with the clients around what this looks like, and also being very, like, you know, understanding of the fact that this is something that not all parents are going to be comfortable with their child being a part of. And, you know, for the transition to Zoom, like, it really didn't feel that different. You know, one of the things that we've done differently since then is, you know, all of our kids, it's reminding them on days when we have an H&I coming, like, hey, make sure that you only put your first name. Don't put your last name. And, you know, kind of reminding them of some of the traditions of AA, because those aren't always the traditions that our kids are following while they're in, like, the more treatment side of it, right? And so reminding them, like, you know, confidentiality is super important, anonymity is super important. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's something that I think adds so much value to the program. And I think it adds value to every program, honestly. Like, I think, you know, the more people out there spreading the message and using their story to help others, I think that's just a beautiful thing anytime it happens. But yeah, I think that's all I have for right now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to hear you share. Now we are going to switch over to the AA side of things a little bit more, and we're going to start that with Matt C., who is the Austin Midford ICYPAA's chairman and is a dedicated member of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Thank you, Tanner. My name is Matt C., and I am a recovered alcoholic. I've never been referred to as the chairman. Thank you for that. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Hannah, and also Anna, who's going to speak as well, for speaking today. This is a great topic. I think the fellowship has been wanting to know how we're going to adapt in all these different areas of things that we do. man, it's just a trip to kind of watch everything come together. I'm probably going to share on the broader spectrum, and then I'm going to tie it all back in. I'm kind of not going to be all over the place, but there's going to be a lot of things that aren't specifically to carrying into institutions, but things that just tie everything in. So we put in a token bid in Boston, and then shortly after that, we were working with different things, and I was on another committee that was utilizing Zoom as the way that we met. And then earlier that year, we had switched over on our ICYPAA Advisory Council over to Zoom to meeting bi-monthly. It was one of those things that happened all around the same time. And so I had been a big proponent and advocate for technology in AA for a very long time. And around that time, I was asked by a committee to facilitate and help come up with a way that we can do elections via Zoom. And so we did all that. And then while I was doing that, I was like, this would be a great workshop. What if we did workshops on Zoom? What if we did all this? And this was September of last year. And since then, the rest is history. You know, a lot of this stuff started happening right when we did our first workshop on Zoom. And I say all that because it's all God. You know, I couldn't have seen it any other way that God wasn't involved with all the things that were happening on our committee and all the things that we were planning. I mean, a month prior to this, we started talking to people about doing a traditions and concept study, and we were like, how cool would it be that we can pull in from somebody that lives 3-4 hours away to go on a workshop online, and people from all over the country can come. And literally a month later, COVID-19 hit. That week that we had that workshop planned on a Sunday, we had it planned that Sunday. That Friday, everything shut down here in Texas. The General Service Conference got canceled physically. Area assemblies were being canceled. And that Sunday morning, I woke up to a bunch of emails about the workshop that we had that Sunday, and we maxed out our Zoom account. And I say all that to say this, that this is all happening and that we are adapting as a fellowship is a beautiful thing to see. Being on the other side of it, we were already making these plans to do these things, and to see it all come to fruition, and that now we're having these workshops on how to carry the message in A and H&Is. And I hope to see more things on corrections, because that's something that us as a committee we're looking at doing and finding the bounds. Now, there's a lot of technical things that go into this, right? Especially with facility. If they're impatient and they're there, and from my experience, it's me as somebody that's always been setting things up. It's in being the person that carries it into the institution itself, right? And so most of the phone calls I get are, how do we do this? How do we make this work? Well, if you have a laptop or a desktop computer that's connected to the internet, you could plug an HDMI cord right into a TV and have sound, mute yourself, and then literally turn your camera off, and then you now have a projector of the person carrying the message right there into your facility. Most places that I've been to carry the message have those kind of things to set up. Obviously, you could have leaps and bounds if you don't have that kind of thing set up. A lot of the things that Hannah had shared, the way that we share into that alternative peer group, is they all log in, and whenever they all log in, they basically have access right there on their phones to log into a meeting where somebody is carrying the message, you know. And a lot of what has been said, you know, it is tough. You know, there's pros and cons. And I'll cover the cons first, right? The cons are that it isn't as engaging to be in front of somebody in a meeting, going to get that cup of coffee and being there, right? There's no experience like it. Whenever I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous at 15 years old, you could smoke in meetings, right? So it was just a totally different experience. You know, I was there, the people would come up to me and give me hugs or give me a handshake and welcome me in, right? You can't really replace that in a digital platform, right? I can't change that for that whole experience for somebody. But whenever I started carrying meetings into treatment centers and things like that, you know, there's something about it, and especially I have a lot of experience with going into treatment centers, and specifically adolescent treatment centers. And so there's something about it, because I got sober at 19 and I came in at 15. So I know what it's like to be a 15-year-old adolescent trying to get sober or not wanting to be sober, and being in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous or sitting in front of somebody telling their story and not wanting to hear it. And so I have that experience, as well as the experience of being the person that's there to tell my story and just not getting a feel for the room, right? And then whenever you have that and you add that layer of complexity that you are seeing the Brady Bunch on your screen of just boxes of people, it does dehumanize some of it, right? So there's the cons. The pros of it, which were kind of shared earlier, is that I could literally log in and I can go and tell my story at a treatment center halfway across the country if I want to. I'm sharing at a workshop next week in Chicago. Like, I could literally go anywhere and go carry the message, right? So there's a level of access, that is just incredible. It's something that we were thinking as a committee when we were doing all these things, that the level of access and knowledge that we can transfer if we hold workshops online, it's very fast and everybody can plug in and access that workshop. Whereas if physically, people have to drive and come. And so that's the part that I think is just incredible. That us as a fellowship, I think that we fast forwarded 5 years into the future through this whole pandemic. And if anything comes out of it, the silver lining is that Alcoholics Anonymous now has a means digitally to do this, where it was there all the time, but now we've been forced to do it. And what I think is going to happen is we get back into normal things of life whenever that happens, because at this point nobody really knows. I think there's going to be hybrid models of meetings, and I think there's going to be hybrid H&Is, and I think it's going to be a platform that I think we're going to carry with us, because it's really tough after 6 months to a year, however long this lasts, of us being here and doing these things. We're going to be accustomed to going to meetings online and carrying the message online. And I think it's not something that's going to stop. While we were doing all this planning, I serve on the accessibilities committee in our district, and we were planning all these things to do with nursing homes and bringing literature to nursing homes. And like literally right after that, it stopped, and we're still trying to find a way to adapt and do all that. And I mean, everything in my whole AA life has changed, right? But on the flip side of that is that so much of this, because we are adapting and we're doing this, there's ways that we can use this technology to carry the message effectively. And I mean, obviously there's some hoops and bounds that we have to go to when we're going into a facility. And it's just like any facility, right? And this has changed over the years. It used to be a lot more lax, but now there's so many different laws and there's so many things. And treatment centers have been burned by people coming in and just doing things and running amok. I mean, I've seen a lot of crazy things. And on the flip side, like some facilities are very particular about what they want. They don't want you to bring in any type of lighters. They don't want you to bring in any type of cell phones. There's all these different things that you have to abide by, right? And so when we approach facilities, it's important that we ask them, what is it do you need from us, right? Because once we go into that facility, whether it's us physically going into that facility or us carrying it digitally through Zoom, there's still that list of requirements. That doesn't really change, right? And so it's important that when we're working with facilities that we're asking them, because we're a guest in their facility, whether or not it's on Zoom or if it's us physically being there. And so that's an important piece of it that I've learned throughout the years. And I think when we switch over to things digitally, we like to make new rules for AAA, even though they're the same rules and they're the same principles, the guiding principles, they don't change, right? The means of getting to that place might change, but the principles never change, right? So there's no reason for us to overcomplicate something that should be simple in the carrying an effective message, right? But you do have to abide by whatever laws that are there and whatever the facility wants, whether or not it's a treatment center, whether or not it's an adolescent facility, whether or not it's some other type of institution where you're carrying the message. It's just very important that we ask those questions as responsible members of the fellowship, that we're fielding all those things and asking what the requirements are. There's tons of people that have all these means of kind of maybe working with them to figure out how to do that. And that's one of the things that we've been working with a few facilities, and Anna and Tanner have been doing a bang up job of continuing this. We had all this stuff planned, and we literally did a few of the workshops that we had planned, a few of the H&Is that we had planned as a big committee. And all this happened, and we quickly adapted, and they came up with a means for us to do the work that was needed to be doing. I think what I see a lot of people, they're coming to this conclusion that, I can't go to a meeting physically and I can't find a new person to work with, and I can't go to this H&I because I can't do it physically. And I think us as members of Alcoholics Anonymous, that's where it's our responsibility. We have to be going to these facilities and asking them. And even though it's not a list of requirements for AA in the third tradition for us to be tech savvy, we need to be innovative and we need to come up with ideas so we can do this. Whenever Bill and Bob were first getting started and they were first working with the first round of alcoholics, I don't think that they had like this thing where they were like, oh, well, we can't do that because we can't do this or that. They made a way, and they got into those facilities and they peed down the doors, and they worked with doctors, and they worked with clergymen, and they worked with people, right? And so I try to think of that very like 1939 mind state of like the big book is just being published and I just read a vision for you, and I'm going to carry the message, and I'm getting out and I'm going to do this deal. I remember, and I'll share a story. I was early on, and I was having a hard time finding people to work with and take them through the work, and I thought I couldn't find places to go carry the message into in facilities. And my sponsor said, "Are you working with doctors? Are you working with clergymen? Are you doing all the things that it talks about in working with others?" And I said, "No." And he said, "All right, well, then sounds like you got some work to do." And those are valuable suggestions that even in this digital age, of this digital flying blind period that AA is in, we just need to come up and be innovative, right? If we want the right answers, they will come, right? If we want those answers, they will come. And I think that's the obstacle that we have as a fellowship. But I think on the flip side of it, once you get past that barrier and you come to a workshop like this, or you talk to some other members, I'm a part of many secret pages where we ask questions and we say, "Hey, how are you doing this in your area?" And then, Jane Doe from Tennessee, gives me input, right? And I get input from a secret page of all these members of Alcoholics Anonymous all over doing the same thing that I'm doing. And I think if we ask around, we get innovative. And then obviously, like Elizabeth said, there's always hoops and bounds, especially every state is a little bit different on how this is. But that's where we work with that facility, just like we would anyway in the physical world, where we would come in and we would ask those questions. What do you need from us? What are your requirements? And, what etiquette do you have? Do you need certain things from us? And then that's whenever you work with them and you come up with a plan that works, right? And I think, the cool thing is that we're seeing everything, come to fruition, that even though we can't meet physically, and we can't do these things physically as we once could at this current time, we're seeing the fellowship adapt. Somebody mentioned it earlier. I could not imagine getting sober in this time period at all. I couldn't. And so in my meetings, in my online home group, and whenever I'm there, I'm searching for that guy, because it's so tough, because I know what they look like physically, right? Whenever I'm in the meeting, that scared straight look, like I don't know where I am and what I'm doing. And the tough part about Zoom is that it's like I can't catch that and I can't connect with somebody physically like that. But we have to find a way to do it, right? I have to be thinking of that new guy or gal, whether they be in a facility or they be in my meeting, that they come, and approaching them in some way that has depth and weight, and that I can catch them. Whether it's just dropping my number in the chat and dropping my email address if they want to email me or whatever, and I'm able to just try to connect with that person. And so when we're doing these H&Is and we're working, and when we're doing this, I try to not necessarily go over the top, but try to do things, man. I can get interactive. I can share slides. I can do all these things that aren't really like possible in the physical world as easy as they are on Zoom. I can prepare a presentation if I want to and do it, and I can get creative. I can ask questions. Hey, are y'all still awake? All these different things, and I can do that. And I can do that in the physical world too. But I think it's just one of those things that getting participation and maybe getting a little bit creative might be warranted. And I know that there's whenever I carried the message into detox, it was a little bit different than a treatment center. The people in detox are like on Librium, just getting off, and they're like right there, and they don't really know where they're at. And like, it's a totally different type of message that you carry to somebody who's maybe been in a long-term treatment facility or correctional facility where they've been there for years and they're just there. It's a little bit different. So I have to gauge my audience in the beginning and kind of figure out, what I need to do it. But I think it's all there, right? If
today and everything that you do, man. We have one more panelist today. Her name is Anna B. She's another member of our bid committee. She's our youth outreach chair, and she's going to talk to you about her experience, strength, and hope around this topic.
Hi guys, my name is Anna, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm really excited to be here today. I've been really looking forward to this workshop. It's really weird to watch myself talk. I'm just going to talk above the computer. So like Tanner said, I am the youth outreach chair, which means basically in Austin, we have several different types of programs that work with specifically adolescents. We have a sober high school, and we have what Hannah was talking about, these alternative peer groups. So we created a position that was specifically geared towards engaging, these kids that are under 18 who want to get sober, and how we can reach out the hand of AA, get these kids involved in service, get them familiar with what we do in AA outside kind of the structure of the high school or APG environment, kind of what the greater landscape of AA looks like. And so that was a project I was really passionate about. And, we set up these H&Is with the sober high school as well as the APG that Hannah was discussing. And we got one in, and then Corona hit. And, what I love about Alcoholics Anonymous is that it wasn't, oh, well, that's too bad, that project's over. It was like, okay, how do we reach these kids? How do we continue to carry the message? And, I'm just great. I've shared before, I think about that quote in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. And that's for so long how I viewed a lot of Alcoholics Anonymous. If there is a space where one or more gather and talk about the solution, and God is in that space, we will gather there and we will talk about the solution. And that's such a beautiful thing. And, Zoom meetings have been really difficult for me to get used to. Like I said, can't stop looking at myself, really hate that. But, it's just all the more evidence and all the more reason why I have to carry a message of depth and weight. I have to carry a message of depth and weight, and I have to be here for the newcomer. And, just a little bit of my background with H&I. H&I is, by the way, it's a Texas term. If you're like, what is that? It stands for hospitals and institutions. It's basically just how we abbreviate taking meetings into these facilities. And I've been in and out of the room since I was 17 years old. And I went to my first meeting when I was 17, went to my last treatment center and got sober this time around when I was 22. And that treatment center was wonderful, but I don't remember much about it. What I do remember is the people that brought a meeting to us every Tuesday and Thursday night. And I remember this guy talked about his experience at Alcoholics Anonymous. And I remember going up to him and saying, I really heard that. I really related to that. Thank you so much. And he said, you don't recognize me, do you? And I said, no, I do not. And he said, my name is so-and-so. I was at your first meeting ever when you were 17 years old, in a different city years ago. And that was the first time God really just kind of slapped me on, like, hey, I'm here. I'm bigger than this. If you let me be bigger than this. And similarly, carrying the message to institutions has had an equally important role in my own sobriety. And yeah, I think it's just a matter of, I was talking to another AA recently about how we all had that day that it was like our day to get sober. My sobriety date is 9/11/2015. That was my day to get sober. What about the person whose day is May 6th, 2020? Who that's their day to get sober. And, I am responsible when anyone anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there, pandemic or not. Because this is a deadly disease. And it is something that my fellow alcoholics saved me from. And, I think it's a beautiful thing that we have the technology to do this. I think over and over again, the last global pandemic was in 1918. They didn't even have a book, thank God. How lucky are we? And I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful to be a part of a committee that is so dedicated, because I heard a speaker say one time, service work is never convenient. And figuring this stuff out was inconvenient for a lot of people who were used to going to AA meetings and getting their coffee and sitting down, like Matt said. So I'm grateful to have a solution, and to still have a way to carry that message today. I think that's pretty much all I got. I definitely want to make sure we have time for questions. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anna. And thank you again to all of our panelists. It was awesome to have you guys here.